Hi guys, Miss Davis here, back for day 17 of the Anne Frank series. So in today's set of journal entries, Anne talks more about Peter and how they sort of met and the time they used to spend together and her thoughts about Peter now. Not Peter Van Daan, Peter Wessel. We talked about that yesterday. There's two Peters. I know, somewhat confusing, but this is the Peter from when she was younger. And she's going to spend quite a bit of time talking about him today, and then more of things of getting along with the Van Daans inside the secret annex. And again, Anne's maturity sort of really comes through in these passages. She makes it very clear that she is growing up. So let's just jump right in. I want to start with Friday, the 7th of January, 1944. Dear Kitty, what a silly ass I am. I am quite forgetting that I have never told you the history of myself and all my boyfriends. When I was quite small, I was even still at kindergarten, I became attached to Carol Sampson. He had lost his father, and he and his mother lived with an aunt. One of Carol's cousins, Robbie, was a slender, good-looking dark boy who aroused more admiration than the little humorous fellow Carol. The name is spelled Karel. But looks did not count with me, and I was very fond of Carol for years. We used to be together a lot for quite a long time, but for the rest, my love was unreturned. Then Peter crossed my path, and in my childish way I really fell in love. He liked me very much too, and we were inseparable for one whole summer. I can still remember us walking hand in hand through the streets together, he in a white cotton suit and me in a short summer dress. At the end of the summer holidays, he went into the first form of the high school, and I into the sixth form of the lower school. He used to meet me from school, and vice versa I would meet him. Peter was a very good-looking, tall, handsome boy with a slim and earnest, calm, intelligent face. He had dark hair and wonderful brown eyes, ruddy cheeks, and a pointed nose. I was mad about his laugh, above all, when he looked so mischievous and naughty. I went to the country for the holidays, and when I returned, Peter had in the meantime moved, and a much older boy lived in the same house. He apparently drew Peter's attention to the fact that I was a childish little imp, and Peter gave me up. I adored him so that I didn't want to face the truth. I tried to hold on to him until it dawned on me that if I went on running after him, I should soon get the name of being boy mad. The years passed. Peter went around with girls of his own age and didn't even think of saying hello to me anymore. But I couldn't forget him. I went to the Jewish secondary school. Lots of boys in our class were keen on me. I thought it was fun. I felt honored, but otherwise was quite untouched. Then later on, Harry was mad about me, but as I've already told you, I never fell in love again. There is a saying, time heals all wounds, and so it was with me. I imagined that I had forgotten Peter and that I didn't like him even a little bit anymore. The memory of him, however, lived so strongly in my subconscious mind that I admitted to myself sometimes I was jealous of the other girls. That was why I didn't like him anymore. This morning I knew that nothing has changed. On the contrary, as I grew older and more mature, my love grew with me. I can quite understand now that Peter thought me childish, and yet it still hurt that he had so completely forgotten me. His face was shown so clearly to me, and now I know that no one else could remain with me like he does. I'm completely upset by the dream. When Daddy kissed me this morning, I could have cried out, "Oh, if only you were Peter!" I think of him all the time, and I kept repeating to myself the whole day, "Oh, Peter, darling, darling Peter." Who can help me now? I must live on and pray to God that he will let Peter cross my path when I come out of here, and that when he reads the love in my eyes, he will say, "Oh, Anne, if only I had known, I would have come to you long before." I saw my face in the mirror, and it looks quite different. My eyes look so clear and deep. My cheeks are pink, which they haven't been for weeks. My mouth is much softer. I look as if I'm happy, and yet there is something so sad in my expression, and my smile slips away from my lips as soon as it had come. I'm not happy, because I might know that Peter's thoughts are not with me, and yet I still feel his wonderful eyes upon me and his cool, soft cheek against mine. Oh, Peter, Peter, how will I ever free myself of your image? Wouldn't any other in your place be a miserable substitute? I love you, but with such a great love that it can't grow in my heart any more, but has to leap out into the open and suddenly manifest itself in such a devastating way. A week ago, even yesterday, if anyone had asked me, "Which of your friends do you consider would be the most suitable to marry?" I would have answered, "Oh, I don't know." But now I would cry, Peter, because I love him with all my heart and soul. I give myself completely, but one thing, he may touch my face, but no more. Once when we spoke about sex, Daddy told me that I couldn't possibly understand the longing yet. I always knew that I did understand it, and now I understand it fully. Nothing is so beloved to me now as he, my Peter. Yours, Anne. Okay, sorry. That's what she wrote, so I had to read it. um, so again, I mean, I think it's kind of universal. She's got this like childhood crush, and the childhood crush, she kind of is obsessing about, and thinking about him, wondering if he thinks about her ever, and things of that nature. So definitely, there's more of a maturity there, and but again, it's hard to really talk too much about love, even though she's so convinced of it at this moment that that must be what it is. Um, it's kind of sweet. Okay, next journal entry. Wednesday, the 12th of January, 1944. Dear Kitty, Eli has been back a fortnight. Meep and Hank were both away from their work for 2 days. They both had tummy upsets. I have a crave for dancing and ballet at the moment, and practice dance steps every evening diligently. I have made a super modern dance frock from a light blue petticoat edged with lace belonging to Mansa. A ribbon is threaded through the round top and ties in a bow in the center, and pink corded ribbon completes the creation. I tried in vain to convert my gym shoes into real ballet shoes. My stiff limbs are well on the way to becoming supple again like they used to be. One terrific exercise is to sit on the floor, hold a heel in each hand, and then lift both legs up in the air. I have to have a cushion under me, otherwise my poor little behind has a rough time. Everyone here is reading the book Cloudless Morn. Mummy thought it exceptionally good. There are a lot of youth problems in it. I thought to myself rather ironically, take a bit more trouble with your own young people first. I believe Mummy thinks there could be no better relationship between parents than their children, and that no one could take a greater interest in their children's lives than she. But quite definitely she only looks at Margot, who I don't think ever had such problems and thoughts as I do. Still, I wouldn't dream of pointing out to Mummy that, in the case of her daughters, it isn't at all as she imagines, because she would be utterly amazed and wouldn't know how to change anyway. I want to save her the unhappiness it would cause her, especially as I know that for me everything would remain the same anyway. Mummy certainly feels that Margot loves her much more than I do, but she thinks that this just goes in phases. Margot has grown so sweet she seems quite different from what she used to be. Isn't nearly so catty these days and is becoming a real friend. Nor does she any longer regard me as a little kid who counts for nothing. I have an odd way sometimes, as it were, of being able to see myself through someone else's eyes. Then I view the affairs of a certain Anne at my ease and browse through the pages of her life as if she were a stranger. Before we came here, when I didn't think about things as much as I do now, I used at times to have the feeling that I didn't belong to Amanza, Pym, and Margot, and that I would always be a bit of an outsider. Sometimes I used to pretend I was an orphan, until I reproached and punished myself, telling myself it was all my own fault that I played this self-pitying role, when I was really so fortunate. Then came the time that I used to force myself to be friendly. Every morning, as soon as someone came downstairs, I hoped that it would be Mummy who would say good morning to me. I greeted her warmly because I really longed for her to look lovingly at me. Then she made some remark or other that seemed unfriendly, and I would go off to school again feeling thoroughly disheartened. On the way home I would make excuses for her, because she had so many worries, arrive home very cheerful, chatter 19 to the dozen, until I began repeating myself, and left the room wearing the same pensive expression, my satchel under my arm. Sometimes I decided to remain cross, but when I came home from school I always had so much news that my resolutions were gone with the wind, and Mummy, whatever she might be doing, had to lend an ear to all my adventures. Then the time came once more when I didn't listen to our footsteps on the staircase any longer, and at night my pillow was wet with tears. Everything grew much worse at that point. You know all about it. Now God has sent me a helper, Peter. I clasp my pendant, kiss it, think to myself, what do I care about the lot of them? Peter belongs to me, and no one knows anything about it. This way I can get all over the snubs I receive. Would you ever think that so much can go on in the soul of a young girl? Yours, Anne. Okay. Well, that last question is one for the ages. Did you ever think so much can go on in the soul of a young girl? I'm going to tell you lots of things go on in the hearts and minds of young girls. Some of it's right, some of it's maybe a little bit misguided, but it does go on nonetheless. So I think Anne is very universal in that way, dealing with, thoughts of um, growing up and having your own kind of family relationships and then dealing with your own family on top of that. I think it's all pretty universal. I remember feeling a lot that way when I was young. Next journal entry, Saturday the 15th of January, 1944. Dear Kitty, there's no point in telling you every time the exact details of our rows and arguments. Let it suffice to tell you that we have divided up a great many things, such as our butter and meat, that we fry our own potatoes. For some time now we've been eating wholemeal bread between meals as an extra, because by 4 o'clock in the afternoon we're longing for our supper so much that we hardly know how to control our rumbling tummies. Mummy's birthday is rapidly approaching. She got some extra sugar from Mr. Crayler, which made the Van Dans jealous, as Mrs. Van Dan had not been favored in this way for her birthday. What's the use of annoying each other with yet more unkind words, tears, and angry outbursts? You can be sure of one thing, Kitty, that we are even more fed up with them than ever. Mummy has expressed the wish, one which cannot come true just now, not to see the Van Dans for a fortnight. I keep asking myself whether one would have trouble in the long run, whoever one shared a house with. Or did we strike it extra unlucky? Are most people so selfish and stingy, then? I think it's all to the good to have learned a bit about human beings. But now I think I've learned enough. The war goes on just the same, whether or not we choose to quarrel, or long for our freedom and fresh air. And so we should try to make the best of our stay here. Now I'm preaching, but I also believe that if I stay here for very long, I shall grow into a dried-up old beanstalk, and I did so want to grow into a real young woman. Yours, Anne. She hasn't really complained about fights with the Van Dans for a while, so there's one, just like everything was going well. It's gotta be really so annoying to be living on top of one another like that with people that are not your own flesh and blood, in such close quarters. So I get it. And again, trying to make the best of things, aren't we all? Just trying to make the best of things. Last journal entry for the day today is Saturday the 22nd of January, 1944. Dear Kitty, I wonder whether you can tell me why it's possible always to try so hard to hide their real feelings. How is it that I always behave quite differently from what I should in other people's company? Why do we trust one another so little? I know there must be a reason, but still I sometimes think it's horrible that you find you can never really confide in people, even in those who are nearest to you. It seems as if I've grown up a lot since my dream the other night. I'm much more of an independent being. You'll certainly be amazed when I tell you that even my attitude toward the Van Dans has changed. I suddenly see all the arguments and the rest of it in a different light, and I'm not as prejudiced as I was. How can I have changed so much? Yes, you see, it suddenly struck me that if Mummy had been different, a real Mumsy, the relationship might have been quite different. It's true that Mrs. Van Dan is by no means a nice person, but still I do think that half the quarrels could be avoided if it weren't for the fact that when the conversation gets tricky, Mummy's a bit difficult too. Mrs. Van Dan has one good side, and that is that you can talk to her. Despite all her selfishness, stinginess, and underhandedness, you can make her give in easily as long as you don't irritate her and get on the wrong side of her. This way doesn't work every time, but if you have patience, you can try again and see how far you get. All the problems of our upbringing, of our being spoiled, the food, it could have been quite different if we'd remained open and friendly and not always on the lookout for something to seize on. I know exactly what you'll say, Kitty. But Anne, do these words really come from your lips? From you, who have had to listen to so many harsh words from the people upstairs? From you, the girl who has suffered so many injustices? And yet, they come from me. I want to start afresh and try to get to the bottom of it all. Not be like the saying, the young always follow a bad example. I want to examine the whole matter carefully myself and find out what's true and what's exaggerated. If then I find myself disappointed in them, I can adopt the same line as Mummy and Daddy. If not, I shall try first of all to make them alter their ideas, and if I don't succeed, I shall stick to my own opinions and judgment. I shall seize every opportunity to discuss openly all of our points of argument with Mrs. Van Dan, and not be afraid of declaring myself neutral, even at the cost of being called a know-it-all. It's not that I shall be going against my own family, but from today there will be no more unkind gossip on my part. Until now I was unmovable. I always thought the Van Dans were in the wrong, but we are too partly to blame. We have certainly been right over the subject matter, but handling of others from intelligent people, which we considered ourselves to be, one expects more insight. I hope that I've acquired a bit of insight and will use it well when the occasion rises. Yours, Anne. So I know it's close, but that's all the time we have for today, so take care and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.